Before closing, I'll give those three tips, which this is an hypermature cataract with a small undilating pupil. So the art of doing the rexis, which goes under the iris, have to be learned here, and I think it was discussed during the capsular rexis session last time. See the hydrodissection, and then this is the bimanual mobilization of the nucleus, identifying the edge of the nucleus and bringing it up out of the bag, and then again supporting the iris with the second instrument while rotating the nucleus out. So most important here is to take care of the endothelium. While mobilizing the nucleus into the entry chamber, we may rub. The Chetan, see even the brown cataract also, you can see the practice. So the second, third stroke, as you see, goes through the substance of the nucleus, so it doesn't touch the endothelium. To separate these two pieces, very important, with the help of two instruments, and each one is removed one by one. When the nucleus is hard like this, it is easy to break, and I'll show the second clip. But it is not so easy when it is not so hard. Here you actually see, Dr. Ravindra, the outer opening is done without reflecting the conjunctiva. It is a direct entry. I think some years back I used to do, and then I gave from there. You see a good glow. This is a nucleus which is not hard one, and the nucleus, epinucleus, and cortex are of similar density. This is the cataract which is going to be difficult. So, and it is a fibrotic pupil as against the non-dilating pupil in earlier case. See, you can see a rim of fibrotic band on the around the pupillary margin. As I try to mobilize the nucleus out of the bag, it is not coming because it is a very friable epinucleus and nucleus. So I also realized that the pupil is not dilating, I mean, allowing the nucleus to come out. So I decide to remove that band of fibrotic band to reduce the resistance of the pupil for the nucleus to come out. But as you will see that it is coming in piecemeal because the nucleus is very soft. So thankfully the pupil or the iris protects the endothelium when you are maneuvering this nucleus out. But all the care should be taken to keep the AC always maintained to protect the endothelium with the help of the viscoelastic. So my three tips would be: so make sure that before we go to the managing the nucleus, you make sure that the tunnel size is adequate to suit the nucleus. That probably you should plan after seeing the patient under slit lamp. You know the type of nucleus you are going to deal with. And the rexis size also equally important, and do not try to bring out a nucleus through a smaller rexis. So that will lead to either a zonular dehiscence or accidental intra, or there is a condition I describe it as hourglass effect, where half of the nucleus will be outside the bag and half is inside, which is refusing to come out, and it is stuck there. It's like an obstructed labor kind of situation. And and every time you try to rotate the nucleus out of the bag also seems to be moving. So this is a very disastrous situation unless you handle it carefully. So don't hesitate to sacrifice the rexis in such situation, or give a tangential cut, and then you can convert that into a rexis. So you have to relax that constricted situation of the nucleus. the nucleus comes out without disturbing the zone. If you are doing a sand nucleus, then your tunnel will have to be bigger. But maintain the architecture of the tunnel in such a way that it doesn't become weak. That is the design I gave it to you. That is a biconcave one with the parallel pillars. Whatever the size from 4 to 8, it will not become weak. The second point would be you should have a very robust technique of hydrodissection and nucleus mobilization, meaning it should not fail you in any situation. So bimanual technique, as I was showing in the earlier video of iris repositor in the dialer, is the best one, wherein the iris repositor stretches the capsular rim and the dialer moves the nucleus to the opposite side, and it is in the opposite direction. So the whole bag doesn't move, only the edge of the rhexis is stretched. And identify the edge of the nucleus with the repository and lift it up. And if your size of the rhexis is good and the hydrodissection is proper, this happens automatically. You do not have to do it. The edge of the nucleus lifts up. That is, put visco and push, lift it, and keep the repository there to prevent it from going back into the bag, and then rotate it with the dialer from the edge of the nucleus. You have to keep an eye on that edge of the rhexis, and as you are rotating the nucleus, it should not move with the movement of the nucleus. If it is moving along with it, that means the size of the rhexis is not adequate. So there is a danger of the zonules giving way in the other side of the lifted part of the nucleus. This is where that hourglass effect happens. So it can be very stressful. So, but don't hesitate to give a relaxing cut that stresses, and then different one is production, because most and the Descemet's detachment. Most of the time, these two things happen during the nucleus management. And because here, as against phaco, we are dealing the nucleus in the anterior chamber after bringing it out of the bag. But remember, this nucleus was always there, and the depth, at least equivalent to the depth of the entry chamber, that space is available to us. We should use that space. That means if we divide it between the space between the endothelium and the nucleus, again, nucleus and the posterior capsule. With the help of the viscoelastic, don't make rest on anything, the nucleus. And of course, while passing the vectis, you may lose visco, or passing the dialer, you may lose visco if you are doing sandwich or bisection. And you don't hesitate to come out and refinish visco. And at any stage, you can stop and go back and reform the entry chamber. And the common occasion, or the step where the Descemet's detachment takes place is if the nucleus gets stuck in the tunnel, and you extend the tunnel in such situation, there is a great danger of Descemet's detachment. Along with the nucleus, the Descemet's also will be pushed towards the entry chamber, causing a tear. So don't push. Maybe you can maneuver it so that it comes out of the tunnel. That's why I said in the beginning, make sure that the tunnel is adequate to allow the nucleus to come out. Remember, it has got not just the diameter, it has thickness, the nucleus. It has central thickness is about 4 plus. Space for that as well. You may say 6 millimeter diameter nucleus and 6 millimeter tunnel. It may not come out. It may require a little bigger if you are doing sandwich technique. And again, any stretching of the tunnel is not desirable. It can lead to tissue tear and leading to secondary healing and leading to higher estimates. So I always say that it's better than SRXs, which is stretched to the nucleus. So these are my tips to the those who are looking for it. But all the faces I see are all accomplished SSCS surgeons, so it is all known to them. So, but it goes into record, so I thought I'll put it down. Thank you very much.
One point I would like to add to it is, into tunnel dimensions, the distance from limbus is also very important. If the distance from limbus of the tunnel is very short or very long, again the problem a novice surgeon may face during the nucleus delivery.
Yeah, you want me to comment on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My tunnel is always 1.5 millimeter on either side of the mid-limbal line in the center. So that is the location. It doesn't vary. You are absolutely right. More you take posteriorly, instrumentation becomes more and more difficult. And at least I believe in the architecture of the tunnel rather than where it is located. So there are, surgeons who concentrate on outer opening, which, they make it anti-smile, that terms conoid, etc. Paul Cox, I even forgot, funnel, isn't it? We have given up on all that. So what I do is, as I told you in the earlier session, I think I've shown the picture also. It is a biconcave, that is an anti-smile outer opening and a smile inner opening, which goes parallel to the mid-limbal line. So the wall of the tunnel continues to remain same from center to the periphery, and the two side pillars are straight. So this can be, that width could be anywhere from 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 mm, but maintain this. Even as you are extending this, since the inner opening is a smile one, the wall is not lost. So the closure is strong and tight, and there is no wound recession because of the widening of the tunnel. As long as you maintain it, as you know, this anti-smile will move away from the mid-limbal line, and so the smile it will go parallel. So the pillar will become longer as you make the tunnel wider. So this longer the pillar, it will maintain the strength. So that is what we have been teaching, and it works beautifully. And we have got a huge, as I was telling last time, 100,000 surgeries are done with that tunnel. So it works.
Very true, sir. Today only I managed a case of iridodialysis. Beautiful wound construction. The only thing was it was almost 3 millimeters behind the limbus, a straight incision.
Yeah, that's very difficult to handle. The instruments all will be looking towards the endothelium, and unless you press it
Like
down,
walking uphill.
yeah, which is that's why we are given up on that. We stay 1.5 millimeter, or even Ravindra's tunnel starts at the on the limbus. In the
Exactly.
second video I showed you, it starts 2.8 is on the limbus, and you come towards the sclera, conjunctiva sclera on the two ends. That's also good enough, as long as about 3 millimeter of central width, rather the length is maintained, and it goes anti-smile. Both that is biconcave. Wherever you place it, it holds. You can count on that.
Sir, what is the maximum width we can go for? Sir? If there is a very hard cataract, but what maximum width we can?
Yeah, if you are doing a sandwich, even make 8 mm. You test yourself, buried it with the suture, but you put a counter pressure at 6 that is 12 o'clock opposite point and see if the lip of the wound doesn't give way. Here one danger is that any pressure on the posterior lip of the tunnel is 8 mm. It may give way. So for that sake, you can put a radial suture in the center and bury the knot. But per se, that wound holds. You can count on that.
I would like to add one point here. See, when we put the aniridia lens, its diameter is 9 millimeters. So that's one of the most beautiful things that you can do an aniridia patient. Put an aniridia lens, and there I routinely measure the diameter of the lens and start with that incision. Surgery I'll finish in 5 to 6 millimeter or 7 millimeter tunnel, then expand it, enlarge it. See, a sharp dissection tunnel made even 9 millimeter, 8 millimeter, you can comfortably do the surgery. It's a rectangular 9 millimeter because you cannot stretch the tunnel. See that the widest part of the lens that you have, measure it, and then make a tunnel. And this will produce an astigmatism. So what you can do is, there are beautiful keratoscopes available, plastic keratoscopes, or a ring or a small thing which you can get an image on the cornea and apply the suture. Suture does not have to tight. You should not put see, there is a calculation. If you put one wrinkle in the cornea when you're suturing it, it produces so many diopters of astigmatism. So see that the pressure is elevated to normal, 18, 19, 20, whatever it is. Place suture, single suture, as Dr. Elegantly said, Shetty, one single suture in the middle is all that is necessary. See that there is no sliding. See, that is the base of the tunnel. That's the top of the tunnel. When you take a suture, see that you're not holding the tissues. A new needle, you can comfortably pass together both the front leaf and bottom leaf and top leaf, pass it together, equal substance on both sides. 3 ties and tie it up. And as you're tying it up, increase the pressure again, monitor with the keratoscope and do it. And then second knot, third knot, you will be amazed to see excellent results. So size of the tunnel is immaterial in SICS. I keep telling, do not try to reduce size and burn your fingers. Endothelial count is number one important thing. Don't bother. All these sclerocorneal tunnels heal beautifully well. They'll be as strong as we have handled any number of injuries. You cannot reopen the tunnel after 3, 4, 5 months time if its sclera is involved or limbus is involved. So the question is very relevant here. Do not worry about the size of the tunnel. Worry about the quality of your surgery and worry about the endothelial count. These are my two strong points I would like to submit here.
Sir, in that small pupil, fibrotic pupil, that the video that you showed, sir, could we do stretch pupilloplasty and will it succumb to it? I don't know that fibrotic pupil, a stretch pupilloplasty maybe could have made things easier, sir. I mean, do you feel that it could have?
That is exactly what happens on its own, because here there is nothing like this phaco tip, the suction catching the iris and all that. Okay. So it's totally under your control. So wherever there is a stretch, and if it is not a stretchable pupil, it will give way. You will see a small sphincterotomy happening on its own, iatrogeny. So but in the second video, it was very fibrotic. It had to be cut. Yes. So in such situations, you can do either microsphincterotomies, but stretch pupil, I mean, I am not a great believer of that, because it makes the whole thing flabby rather than, I haven't done even once. But if there are signy cases, yes, I release them and, make the pupil wider. But non-dilating pupil which is stretchable, this bimanual technique is good enough to take care of.
Chetan, you can share the screen now. You can go take your presentation.
Give me a minute. Okay. My topic today is soft cataracts are not soft, but they're hard to operate on. See, everything is same as we do in any other cataract surgeries. The tunnel is same. The only thing that differs here is the capsule is very elastic. So there are more chances of runaway rhexis in these particular cases. So I'll be showing a video which, when I recently was operating, this was a patient with posterior subcapsular cataract because of using steroids for his asthma. So this young patient, as you see, the capsule is very elastic, and then when I'm trying to do that, it usually tends to run away. So that is one thing that we have to keep in mind. And second thing is, these are the patients who have little vision. So we are usually a little tensed about doing anything in them. So as you see, it is elastic. I have slowed down the video so that it is very clear. See, it is trying to run away there. So the only tips here is you have to hold at the edge and try to the opposite clock hour or the diagonally opposite clock hour and bring it to the center. A centripetal force has to be used here to complete the rhexis. So this is what I wanted to tell. The first point would be something to do with the elastic capsule that you have to handle. Sometimes it rolls on when you try to do that. So here I could successfully complete the rhexis, and then the case goes on as usual. The second point where it differs is usually handling the soft nucleus, because a bimanual technique becomes a difficult case, there has to be an adequate rhexis. This was a case of Fuchs iridocyclitis. So again, a posterior subcapsular cataract, and the nucleus is very soft. If you see, when I'm trying to form the AC with the viscoelastic, you can see a small bleed which happens here from the angles. So in this case, a good hydro is a must. Usually, as Dr. Shetty said, when you do a good hydro, the edge lifts up, which is a good sign for us. It becomes easier to operate. But if it does not happen, one, you have not done a good hydro, or second, it is not adequate enough. In this particular case, I had a difficulty where I tried to do a hydro and try a bimanual flipping technique, but again there is a cheese wiring of the nucleus that is happening. So I'm totally stuck. I was doing a topical SICS. So that is when I thought, okay, let's try to do a hydro assisted, repeat a hydro and try to get the nucleus into the anterior chamber, but again in vain. So that is when I thought, okay, let me try to use a visco assisted, bringing the nucleus into AC, which actually helped me out. So this is where I say a soft cataract at times is not at all soft. It is very hard to get it out of the bag and then bring it out of the eye. So this is where I'm trying to do with visco, I'm trying to do a hydro, a gentle hydro with, visco, which brought the nucleus out, and finally I could deliver it out. You can still see, I'm still struggling with that soft nucleus there. That's where I say sometimes soft is hard to operate on. So finally managed to bring it out. And the next point that I would touch upon is the cortical wash in a soft cataract. It is of utmost importance because we have a lot of cortex and the epinucleus to be washed. So first of all, you have to have a clear view of what you are trying to aspirate. So first, a gentle hydro. I have slowed down the video so that I can explain it. A gentle hydro has to be done, depressing the posterior lip from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock and then to 9 o'clock, and vice versa, from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock and 3 o'clock, depressing the posterior lip, which usually debulks this epinuclear material. Sometimes even that doesn't help. Aspirating the epinucleus and having a clear view is of utmost importance. As you can see, I am just trying to debulk the anterior chamber. Now we have a clear view here. When it comes to this, most of the wash has to be given from the side port. What I tell all my PGs is just go inside, count 1, 2, 3, the AC forms. Then go to the 5 o'clock position. Usually the cortex is arranged in such a way that it has a head and a tail. So it is always important to go under the capsule and hold the head of the cortex and aspirate. What is easily seen is the tail at the center. But what is important is to, as Dr. Shetty has always taught me, catch the snake by the head, not by the tail. So this is what I have learned from him. And this has to be done in such a way that you catch the head, bring it to the next clock hour, and either try to bring it out or aspirate. So the next cortex would be the next clock hour, either it is anti-clockwise or the clockwise. So it is ready to be aspirated. And the
2 minutes.
Yeah, and the next important thing is you have to go with the suction off. You should not be sucking while you're going towards the anterior capsule. Once you go near the cortex, then you start sucking, you will get the anterior cortex that is there. One more important thing would be, washing the cortex under the side port. Most of the people have a problem with this. It has to be done from the main port with the cannula going to the extreme right and then picking up the head of the cortical matter and bringing it out. One more thing is, if you have a problem here, you can always push viscoelastic and then catch the cortical matter and bring it out. You can actually free the elbow when you are doing that. Then comes the rest of the wash. So when you follow these things, I think the complication that happens during the wash can be avoided. Once you're done with this, you have to polish the undersurface of the anterior capsule. Also, a tangential hydropolishing of the posterior capsule prevents the PCO to be formed. So what I usually advise is, if you have a problem with the aspiration, most of it has to be done from the side port, only the cortex under the side port to be removed from the main port, and then use adequate visco and go with, you can always do a dry aspiration to avoid the complications. Thank you.
Chetan,
Sir.
nicely demonstrated that
Ravi, tell me.
rexis, that elastic rexis, the key point is should always maintain the AC deep. Then only you'll get a good rexis. Otherwise, it always tends to run to the periphery. And about soft cataract, you should have one pole prolapsing, that you should see. Good hydro is a key. Soft is very easy, actually, it will prolapse. And one more thing is, you should maintain a very high pressure in the anterior chamber than the outside. Then only things will come very fast. Otherwise, it keeps on staying there only when you have a less pressure in the anterior chamber.
Ravi, most of the time I end up getting the edge of the nucleus coming out during hydro procedure. But this was one case where I really struggled, and I shared it in one of these meetings, and they said, you have to present and we will see how best it could be avoided. So I thought I chose this case to be presented.
And why that bleeding? It was because of your repeated pushing the visco from the main tunnel?
It was a case of Fuchs. It was a case of Fuchs iridocyclitis. We call it as Amsler sign.
So in soft cataracts, don't try to catch it with the instrument, in a sense like Vectis dialer and all that. So the hydrodissection is the key, and you start with the just below the anterior capsule, and you keep doing the hydrodissection all around. So that means once you see that wave going underneath and coming from the other side, that means it has separated from the bag. Now you have a soft cataract which is not attached to the bag. So now it has to only come out. So then you do the same, the counterpoints hydrodissection, and then it starts lifting up. So unless, as I told you, becomes an hourglass kind of a thing, it will come out of the bag. If it does that hourglass effect, it's fine. Now you start doing hydrodelamination and even the one more, this one, so that it all gets separated. But now that it is not attached to the bag, it's a matter of time it comes out. And even you can start from one point where some amount of nucleus has come.
Sir, we cannot hear you.
Everybody is muted, I think.
Oh, it's on.
It's on.
I am muted. Okay. So do not let do not try to catch the instrument in the early stage, and most of it will come out through visco expression only. And if the whole thing is in the anterior chamber, then you can try to do hydro and make it into cortex, epinucleus, and nucleus separate, and then put visco. Sometimes I go through this lens and go to the other end and start injecting the visco, so that the whole thing comes out.
All is talked about hydro.
You're muted, ma'am. Dr. Shilpa, you're muted.
Someone's playing video, I guess.
You can speak now. No problem. You can continue speaking.
And no one talked about hydrodelineation. I wonder why. In PSCs and PPCs, hydrodelineation multiple times does help nucleus delivery.
This is my, am I audible? This is one of the case, what sir
You are
was
audible.
telling, Sundaram Shetty sir was telling, no, the good hydrodissection in one go, and from the other side, again do it, it will usually come out, soft nucleus, and the high pressure, because of the high pressure in the entire chamber, whole thing will come out in one go.
Yeah. Your
AC
AC maintainer is doing the trick.
It's a magic, sir, magic. Yes, sir.
No, I think just to quickly add on, I think the two most important points are rhexis sizing and hydrodissection. Those are only two keys. Nothing else is important in soft cataracts. Assuming that we don't have a good sized rhexis, that's when the problem happens. You don't have a good sized rhexis and your hydrodissection is not good enough. Then what you do? Then, as Dr. Shilpa was telling, then you resort to hydrodelineation. You do multiple rings, the size of the nucleus goes down. Then, by just passive irrigation itself, the small nucleus will float up and then you come out. But then you need to deal with the epinucleus and cortex mess. So that you have to wear. And only thing is just hang in there, hang in, it will come out. It's not a big deal. Just hang in there, be patient. That's all.
Just you can hold on Simcoe cannula beneath the anterior rhexis margin and it floats up, I guess.
Even some amount of cortex can be aspirated and repeat the hydrodissection after aspirating the cortex. Not cortex, the lens material rather. So sometimes that will also help.
Aspirating epinucleus is a painful exercise. You will get a small hematoma under your nail.
No, I think just passive irrigation. You just keep on irrigating, just fold on its own and come out.
It will fold on its own. Once you remove the nucleus, then you hydrodissect. You can see it collapsing into the center.
Collapsing. Then combination of visco and hydro will express it out, everything out.
I usually take 10 cc and flush it from the main wound, pressing the posterior lip, it will come out.
So what would have gone wrong with my case? I mean, was it not a good hydro that I've done? I really didn't understand what was happening. And
you are changing your strategy too often. You should have stayed with hydrodissection and you would have achieved the goal without any difficulty. You started thinking too much. Don't think too much. Cataract surgery is a very straightforward procedure.
No, I think he was doing it very comfortably. He wanted to present this. That's why you are very slow.
No, nothing like that, sir. It was a case of Fuchs hetero. I mean, first time I'm operating hydro. I've never operated. Second, I had planned a trifocal in that, and then that was giving me a added pressure on my head. You know, I had to have the rhexis there. I cannot just have continue to do a hydro, and then what if the rhexis gives away, and what if I cannot put a trifocal in this patient? Though I had told him that if I am not able to put the trifocal, I'll go with unifocal. Whatever said and done, but that is what I was talking, the initial thing. They have a vision of 660, 636. I cannot give them counting figure 3 or 4, private practice. So that is where there was a pressure mounted on my head, and then I struggled, but eventually it went on very well. And when I said that to Deepak sir, he said, you have to present it. I said, fine, I'll present it. I mean, it went on well, but I remembered all my teachers once what to do next, how to go about it. What if, this happens? So I did not continue with hydro. I thought a visco would do a magic, and it did in this particular case. So I just wanted to know how the masters would have handled it, so that next time when I get into such situation, I could use their knowledge.
I would just like to say everyone from the forum would have faced this situation once in a lifetime. I as always, I said that hydrodelineation definitely doesn't help. If hydropole, prolapse of the nucleus into anterior chamber is not happening, then definitely I go for hydrodelineation. The problem here is there is no dense nucleus where you can hold it with a dialer or an iris repositor or any instrument, it just passes through, it just pokes through. So there is nothing like substantial to hold on. Then definitely you're going to, as either you put an AC maintainer and let everything flow out, or do hydrodelineation and get away with it.
No, there is absolutely no need to get tense. This is the safest in a sense. It's very friendly to the endothelium, and your tunnel is not an issue. It will mold and come out through any size of the tunnel. So where is the tension here? You stay. First hydrodissection should be just below the capsule. Separate the whole lens matter from the capsule. Then you know that your capsule is free. Then whichever way you hydrodissect or hydrodelineate, you reduce or make into multiple pieces, whichever it is bound to come out. And if you have a space, start putting visco so that there is a gap between the capsule and the lens matter, and you will start seeing the little build-up of pressure in the bag, and the nucleus matter will start coming. So absolutely nothing to be tensed about. Chetan, you unnecessarily got worked up.
So one more thing was there was bleeding from the angles.
Okay, that's a part. But as the cataract as such, soft, it is just exercise patience and just stay with the what we discussed just now. It will be fine.
And I usually have easy go, but this one was a little tricky. And using visco actually arrested the bleed from the angles, which helped me out so I thought, let's go and present this and find out what people.
No, it's a good presentation. So
no, I think we should appreciate the honesty with which he presented. The problem was not technical. The problem was more of a mindset, because he was more worried about the technical outcomes of the patient's expectations, dealing with those aspects. And it's a very honest submission. I think that we all go through, we have all gone through, we all operate in situations. It's not a skill level deficiency. It's more about being in the present situation. You are not aware. I need to be present. If you are just thought about that, not worry about what the patient is going to say tomorrow, you would have come out in the issue in 5 minutes earlier than what you took. You took extra 5 minutes, that's all. It's more of a mental issue rather than a technical issue. You very well know how to do everything. And this all we have gone through. Thank you for your honesty and presenting it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Nice.
Over to Dr. MSR sir for his presentation on the art of nucleus bisection. You can share your screen, sir.
I don't know. I seem to have a problem with the internet. Just 1 minute. So I'm audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah. Your screen is visible. Yeah.
So basically, I'll show a couple of videos. Kindly, somebody has to tell me when, for 2-3 minutes, when I have to conclude. This is the first video I would like to show. I made a rectangular sclerocorneal tunnel here. It's about 2.5 millimeter long, exactly 6 millimeter wide. That's a special cannula that I use, which is bent at 2 millimeters. Always hydrodissection is my mantra. You separate the capsule from the cortex, actually. It's not between epinucleus. With hydrodissection, the direction of the cannula tip is towards the equator. It is not horizontal to iris. This level is upper, the tip is lower, so that you go along the contour of your lens front. You'll have a beautiful hydrodissection. The first thing that I'll do is, I do not plan for the lifting of this. I just want the fluid wave to pass along. It's a single point hydrodissection. That's what I'm describing this. If it comes out, I'll actually many times push it back. I want it in the capsular bag so that I rotate the nucleus and epinucleus. So this mask contains nucleus as well as epinucleus. Epinucleus is always removed with nucleus. It makes life much easier. If you want to see it again, I'll go back. So it's come out actually, but then I'm taking the same one in 1 or 2 clock hours. It comes in the gantry chamber. Then this is a kind of this is sclerocorneal tunnel, which I used to make for more than 2 decades now. And this is a narrow vectis. The vectis is narrowed down. Standard vectis, you can press it here and to make it a little narrower, and then it goes behind. As I said last time, the nucleus should not move when you're doing it. It's always nice to play back these videos. What do you learn from here? You can see I'm pushing the lateral end of the tunnel with the wire vectis, with the result that there are folds in the cornea. These folds will produce, this is a very old video, will produce endothelial loss. Take it from me. There is some amount of endothelial loss which is being produced by abutting the edge of wire vectis here, creating folds. So I'm bisecting it as this is a 25 gauge cannula. Earlier I used to use 26 gauge cannulas, but this is a 25 gauge cannula, which is mounted on a Luer log syringe. Remember Luer log, because sometimes I've seen needle getting popped out as you're injecting the viscoelastic. Mount it on a 2 ml Luer log syringe, fill HPMC and hold it in that fashion. Like that, okay? And continuously inject. You can practice it outside the eye. You can practice and keep writing alphabetic A, B, C, D, so you have a good grip of how you're doing it. I'm continuously injecting viscoelastic in front of the nucleus, as you can see here, and that keeps the nucleus away. Then half of the nucleus comes out. Why I'm doing this? Why I'm not enlarging the tunnel, in a large way and trying to control it? Initially, when I started this ICS way back, I saw that I was producing more astigmatism than I wanted. Basically, I've been doing multifocal lenses from 86. 86 is the first multifocal lens I've implanted. 97 onwards, I've been implanting multifocals left and right, a lot of them, thousands of them. And there I needed a good control of astigmatism. That's the time I said extension laterally of the tunnel would produce unexpected astigmatism. Dr. Boramani has worked extensively on it. He has a control on it. But that's the reason why I always opted for rectangular tunnels. And then if I have to work with rectangular tunnels, I need to bisect the nucleus. So again, continuously injecting visco in front of the nucleus, I am guiding the nucleus out. There are 2-3 elements that are happening. I'm floating the nucleus on the wire vectis. Wire vectis has to have least amount of substance. It should not be very thick. And the next is I'm continuously injecting viscoelastic, and I am going perpendicular to the axis of the tunnel so that I draw it out. As it comes out, then the whole surgery is over. Then next is aspiration. I'll go to the next video just to explain. I'll go straight into the vitreous. Sorry, the nucleus. Yeah. Do a rhexis which is as large as possible. See, now I'm rotated the nucleus. I'm pulling it out of the capsular bag. This you can do it when you have adequately sized rhexis. Then I'm scoring it, it doesn't bisect. Then I take a cystitome itself. Cystitome is again mounted on 2cc syringe and supported by the standard wire vectis. I score this. It's very easy to break it in 2 pieces. See that the posterior plate is completely separated. There should not be any fibers linked between them. Otherwise, if you're pulling it, that also inadvertently moves. So now bring it to the center. As you see, I go to the front first, inject visco, then bring it to the center. So this is a case with very high myopia, with a very mature cataract, loose zonules, but then I could completely do it. I'll go to the next video. This is a posterior subcapsular cataract. I'll just show how I do it. That's it, enlargement. Hydrodissection, single point, hydrodissection only. The fluid has gone away. There's no lifting of the pole. I can do a beautiful lifting of nucleus, epinucleus of the right cannula, 25 gauge, rotate it in 2 clock hours, it comes to the antechamber. bisect it, one half of the nucleus is out of the eye, push it back, align it to the tunnel, lift it up. This is a special wire vectis called mini vectis. It's got a very, very small measurements, and that doesn't stretch the tunnel at all. So now you are left with only a little bit of cortex, and it's very easy to pull it out. The nucleus rotation. It rotates in a plane of, there are no pull on the zonules. It rotates in a plane of cortex, loose cortex and epinucleus. Lift it up, rotate it into the anterior chamber. See that the center of nucleus remains in the center of nucleus. No trauma. This is another beautiful wire vectors I've created. Width is only about 2 millimeters. It's longer. It's got a shape like that, a cubaceous shape, parallel to the back of the cortex. This is available commercially right now.
2 minutes to go, sir.
This is least traumatic. The wire is very thin and it's got very large, very lengthy one, like a spoon, and very narrow one. I call it as a narrow vectis. So bisect it. You should be very careful. You should be careful that the lens does not so much soft. This is one of the best things that you can do to a soft nucleus. It just flows out. There's no trauma to the tunnel, no trauma to the cornea. Go back again. Narrow vectis, very long narrow vectis. You can even bisect it once more. It's totally a trisection. You can do any number of cuts on the nucleus depending upon. Don't try to reduce the tunnel, so you don't achieve anything. So now everybody says reduce the tunnel, reduce the tunnel. It's very, very relevant when you're doing when you're doing phacoemal calcification, where you cannot afford to operate with a large tunnel like this. And this is the marker. This is a posterior. I had a doubt whether it's a posterior capsular cataract because there are a lot of onion rings. There are tension, as you can see here. So you can see the tension lines in the periphery. This looks like a classical posterior capsular cataract.
1 minute to go, sir.
I did a good rexis. Then even for PSC, I do a hydrodissection. That's my habit. I've been doing it for ages. This is a special this I'm putting lignocaine a little bit there. Then I go under the capsule. It's a capsular subtending hydrodissection. But I see that the fluid wave stops at that point, at the edge of it. Again, I'll do that very gently. It stops there. This has become hydrodelineation inadvertently. I didn't want it that. But anyway, I've done multiple hydrodelineation, very soft cataract. I'm actually trying to rotate it. As you can see, it's difficult to rotate. I'm not separating the epinucleus and the nucleus. Rotate it in two directions alternatively, and it bunches up in the front of the capsule. Then with little pressure and very little jump, there is no positive pressure at all in the eye. It's all less than 15, less than 10. So I'm trying to remove the entire nucleus epinucleus by manipulating it out, continuously injecting viscoelastic so that endothelium is protected. And see, as I'm cajoling the mass from the subincisional cortex into the central area, and I'm always now scared of the central opening. As you can see here, you can see the anatomy of this. I'll just show you in a minute. Why does these capsules break? See, entire area is covered by cortex. This is covered by a fibrotic ring. This is the one which is exposed now. So whenever you blow fluid inside the anterior chamber with any technique that, including the AC maintainer, the capsule is blown backwards, and the entire thrust of it, entire pressure of it falls on a small area which is exposed. This is a capsule. That's the reason why you will have a tear of the posterior capsule many times. There is not there many times before, but it's iatrogenic. In this technique, because of low pressures, there is no pressure exerted on the open window of the central area. As you can see here, that's open. It's capsule, then a fibrotic ring. You have to be very careful not to blow the anterior chamber. Very gently take it out, leaf by leaf, as you can see here. The AC is just about 2 to 3 millimeters, not deep. This is a magical instrument, Simcoe Cannula, mounted in a bulb, and now you can see what's happening. I'm disrupting. You can see now the ring came out. See the now the pressure is equally distributed on the rest of the capsule. There is no focal pressure. more and more you remove it, and the risk of posterior capsule blowing out is reduced. So I hope you understand the mechanics of this, but see, it's all now entire pressure is distributed. It's not a focal pressure. So the risks are much lesser as you are removing the posterior capsule. So my philosophy in a posterior capsular subcapsular cataract is to do a good hydrodissection. Sometimes the hydrodissection passes across. I've had no problem, but it has to be a very, very little amount of fluid. So you separate. And again, most of the problems that you get here is not because of anything else. It's because of too much of hydrodissection. You will not allow the fluid to come out because you're doing from a side port. Here, I always do hydrodissection to the main port. So right trolley fluid comes out, and you will never blow out the, capsular bag posteriorly. So let us look at another picture. This is another classical picture, as you can see here. This is more like a posterior subcapsular cataract. I'm doing a hydrodissection. I'm not worried now. Yeah, this is what I want to see. See, this is a part of posterior capsule and a little layer of cortex adherent to it. That has got separated from this mass. You can see once more. So now I'm started doing hydrodissection, which is my routine in all PSCs. Hydrodissection. See that it got separated. I'm not worried because the fluid is gentle, the chamber is open, the fluid can come out there. The pressure does not increase beyond what I target. Rotate the nucleus epinucleus complex, and a lot of cortex is a part of it. I'm not disrupting it. No hydrodelineation. Entire mass beautifully comes. I have a mass there in the anterior chamber, again with a special wire vectis, mini vectis. I'm bisecting it and letting it come out. So I'm just enumerating the different kinds of nucleuses that you encounter and how to manage it. Bisect, all of them are bisected, all of them are taken out. And you can see again, the capsule is exposed there. Blow it up like a balloon, which is going to break in that area because all the pressure falls there. And now you have aspirated the cortex and you're ready to implant the lens.
Time up, sir.
This is a case of pseudo-exfoliation. You're sure that all these zonules are weak. You're sure that there is a threat of posterior capsular tear. You have a threat of the zonular suppression. And how do you manage it? Again, here, I'll just go to the capsule is in the same philosophy. Nucleus, epinucleus taken out, and it makes your life very easy to remove it together. And that's why I say hydrodelineation is a complication of cataract surgeries. Never plan to get it because then you're going to separate epinucleus, nucleus, and then you're in a problem. I don't know what time is it. I'll just show you a couple of more videos.
Time up, sir. Yeah. We can have some questions.
Ravindra sir, with your right hand, you are injecting the visco along with the cutting, the bisecting.
Why? Yeah, it's throughout. While bisecting, I'm continuously injecting visco with the cannula. You're right.
Okay. And rotating the nucleus also, right hand has a visco
continuously.
cannula.
The moment I take it inside the eye, it's continuously injecting visco till I come out. As long as right cannula is there inside the eye, it's injecting visco. HPMC. That's very easy actually. You hold it like I just showed you. Hold the syringe like that with your finger on that, and that's a cannula. As you're injecting, kindly keep on pressing it, inject it. So the visco will be continuously coming out. If you don't have a coordination, do it outside the eye. Leftover visco is there at the end of the surgery tomorrow. You write alphabetical number. You put your signature. You write A, B, C, D as you're injecting with visco on a paper. And you'll learn it very easy. Your endothelium will be pristine. There won't be any endothelial loss if you do it.
But you are using 25 cannula now, sir. It won't get stuck, sir. HPMC.
No, I used to use 26 gauge cannulas for decades. Now I've shifted to 25 gauge cannulas because they are commercially available. So I used to manufacture these cannulas from a needle, from a 26 gauge needle. But now, I talked to. There are a couple of ways of cannulas. Commercially available cannulas are not strong enough. When you do that, to bisect the nucleus, they flex. Okay. So now I spoke to Jain Medical Company, JMC, Jain. Mr. Jain is a good friend of mine. He has made a thick
Picon.
125 gauge cannulas which come with Visco now. I coordinated the Visco supplier, Arrow Labs Visco supplier, and he has given 25 gauge cannulas along with it. When you buy Visco, you ask him to supply 25 gauge cannulas, they come free to you and you can use them and throw it out. They are thicker, they are stronger cannulas, unlike the commercially available cannulas. You are right, you pointed out. Correct.
It's very difficult to push Visco. We usually use 23 gauge cannula because it just goes in more freely. But in 25G, I think it's much more tougher for us to push through. That was my experience with this.
No, it's right out tomorrow, Dr. Deepak. It's very easy. 26 also is very easy. Even through 27, you can push HPMC, but the volume that comes out within a cannulas is lesser. 22 cannulas is readily available. 22, 25, 27. These are the three cannulas that are available commercially. 22 is very easy to push, but they are very thick in the bore.
Yes.
25 is a good marriage between amount of visco that comes out through it and strength of the cannula and the easy to manipulate through smaller.
Will the Oro Lab person send the 25 gauge with
you'll have to ask for it. You'll have to ask for it. Normally they send 22, but tomorrow you ask him, I need 25 cannulas. You mention him the ones which Dr. Amindra uses, he'll be able to supply.
Okay, sir.
Instead of that, he'll supply this.
So the
So what is the size
those are
of
the
the
nine,
hydro cannulas?
27 cannula, doctor. They're modified hydro. As you can see there,
Sir, are they available commercially?
No, they're not available. You'll have to make them. I can show a video how to make them. I don't have a video now. I'll check if I have video, then I'll share it. It's easy to make.
Please share it on the.
just for the understanding of beginners,
Yeah.
I think you are the one of the earliest to start, and you are the only very few surgeons who are doing the nuclear by dissection, sir. Usually the beginners will have doubts. Which viscoelastic you use, sir, for this?
Only HPMC. Only HPMC.
For all the HPMC.
All throughout. Except in very rare conditions, I use chondroitin sulfate, but my priority is HPMC. That is the best one. Take it from me. That is the one which protects endothelium maximally. Nothing else can match that.
Okay. And other doubt usually the beginners will have. How do you manage? Because when you try to bisect, usually it might tilt inside the antechamber because you have to hold it nicely. Or do you support your right hand or left hand in down because you're doing the temporal section or temporal section, isn't it, sir? And how, do you? What is the tip or what is the skill there to manage avoiding the tilt of the nucleus? Because most of the time, usually it will tilt. That is the most difficult part for the beginners.
I think it's a very good question. Basically, it's a question of balancing the wire vectors. The wire vectors is like that. Wire vector is like that. Nucleus is sitting on that. Wire vector should be wide enough so that you don't have to, why do you trip it? Like if you take, for example, I don't have it. Yeah. I'll take a ball here and supporting with wire vectors. Okay. If I'm cutting it right in the center, and then if by chance I tilt it like this can go down.
Yes.
So the wire vectors has to be actually parallel to the iris, and then your cannula should be slightly angulated. If you have a side port, you can go this way. It's very easy. If you don't have a side port, I'll have to go through it. Left side, my wire vector stem goes. Right side, my cannula goes. You should be equally dividing the two. And see that you're not tilting the wire vectors in any direction. It will only manipulate. And if the nucleus is very hard, as long as you're cutting it, it is not going to tilt. If the nucleus is going to very hard, then if you're trying to cut it through it, then that's a chance it can even somersault. I've had cases way back before I started using the cystatome for bisection in hard nucleus. It can tilt and rotate it. So it's a very good question. See, it's a question of balancing. And also tilting means what? you're not only going to have one pole down, other pole up. The pole which is upper is going to rub on the cornea.
Yeah.
So tilting is very bad. Separation physically of the two is very important. And why are doing all of that? To have a good control of astigmatism. So when you want to put a toric lens, when you want to put a multifocal lens, you need to achieve good SI, standard SI. That's only possible when you have a balance. How do you calculate? You should have the same repeatable tunnel size, repeatable tunnel length, repeatable, which you can predict the amount of astigmatism you want to produce.
You showed us different
These three
type of.
reasons you can make it. You can adopt this technique. But
Sir,
there
you
is
showed.
nothing wrong in sclerocorneal tunnels. There is nothing wrong in taking it out in toto. They're all fine. See, you got only two aims there in any cataract surgery. Respect endothelium. Next day on slit lamp, you should not have any striate keratopathy anywhere in the cornea. So this is the continuous feedback whenever you modify it. If there is a thing, you let it go and analyze why it happened. That's where the question of video recording comes. Any technique what you adopt, and then you should be able to tell, I'm going to produce this 0.75 diopter SIA in this patient against the rule, you should achieve it. So these are the only two issues. How you do cataract surgery, what technique, it doesn't really matter. These two are the ones which ultimately count.
And also you showed us different types of vectors, sir. And sir, just Nagaraj sir, one.
Carry on, sir.
Different type of vectors, sir. You select the vectors depending on the density of the nucleus or depending on the size of the.
I think the last 6 months, I've been developing instruments left and right. 3 companies helped me a lot. At least I must have introduced more than 100 instruments of my own instruments. I can show you, I'll have about 2 dozen types of vectors, which are specifically made for
I mean, what I'll do is reason to select different types of vectors.
Yes. So I showed most of the vectors is here. The one which I commonly use, the vectors, teardrop size vectors is probably the best one for larger sclerocorneal tunnels. They are the best ones. And irrigating vectors is one other concept which is popularized by Aravind Eye Hospital. That's one of the best things that you can do. Okay, if you're not using irrigating, the one I showed, the teardrop type of wire vectors, which I initially started with. But when you want to bisect it, when you want to really narrow it down, less bulkier vectors are more important. They are being available now. I've earmarked 2 vectors right now, which will be produced by one of the local Bangalore companies, which will be available very soon. So I'll give a demo of it next time when I'll bring the vectors and show it to you. Basically, I use 3 vectors right now. One is teardrop, other is the oval one.
If you can put in the groups the photographs of the, then it would be. Sir, Nagaraj sir, please continue.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, sir, for the excellent videos. Actually, I was just asking, I just want to ask you one question, sir. Why you are stuck on to still bisection for all the cases, sir? I started with bisection and I moved over to phaco sandwich, but still I do bisection for only few cases, not for all the cases. But you are very persistent and you still carry on with bisection. Can you just tell us what are the advantages, sir?
Maybe the reason is for a parent, however the child is, it's always, it's always the best. I started that practice a long time ago, and I thought I liked it. And even for soft cataracts, I bisected. The reason is, I always feel like in episiotomy, all gynecologists, obstetricians know when you cut it and suture it, it gives much better results when compared to allowing to stretch and collapse. See, these tunnels which are, they are watertight. I don't have to hydrate them. Even if I make a 7 mm tunnel, as long as you are not broken the, architecture of the tunnel by stretching it. See how much you are stretching the tunnel. So we are stretching when we are doing it out. We see the video of the nucleus coming out after it remains gaped for some time, fish-mouthing. That's because there is a micro tear of collagen fibrils. When you cut the nucleus and take it out, even half nucleus is sometimes very large. I can show you a couple of instruments. You will have to really struggle it out to take it out, even the half nucleus. So when such is a situation, when you can actually cut it very safely inside the eye and pull the nucleus out. This is just to safeguard that the tunnel architecture is not changed. I've never hydrated a tunnel, but when I do a small incision and do a phaco, then I have to hydrate. In spite of it, I'm worried whether it's going to leak overnight, whether conjunctival fluid gets into it, because there's a fish mouthing. It will all heal, but there is a fish mouthing. These tunnels will never fish mouth because they're adequately sized and they're not stretched during the surgery.
Sir, what are your tips when you try to bisect a very hard nucleus? Your scleral tunnel is 6 mm and there is a hard nucleus inside. What I usually do, I don't do the bisection exactly at the center. I slightly do it at the periphery edge. What is your tips, sir?
Yeah, see, that's a thing which I've tried. You have made the nucleus, you made the nucleus one large, one small.
Yeah.
Okay. Now to take it out small nucleus out of the eye, you have to push the big nucleus to a side. When you push the big nucleus to a side, it's going to press on the ciliary body through the iris, number one. It's going to press the cornea on the back. So it's always nice to divide them into 2 pieces or divide them into 3 pieces, take out the central nucleus first and then the rest too. Asymmetrical cutting intentionally will damage the other side cornea when you push it as you're taking it out. My favorite technique right now when you have nucleus is snare. Snare is just beautiful. I mean, you can do 3 pieces and take out the central piece first and the lateral 2 pieces. It's least damage to endothelium compared to any other thing. And later, I actually devised a lot of instruments with the help of Jane to bisect it. A sharp, like he made a needle with a sharp down, like a cutting needle. With the cutting needle, he made a dissecting. Even that was not cutting very well. Though it's a triangular cutting needle. With that, he made a instrument to cut the nucleus. It doesn't. Later, I detected why I'm struggling so much. Cystitome is in my hand. You score it 2-3 times. Any nucleus, you can break it. But again, you'll have to be extremely careful. The large nucleus is in the antechamber. There is a threat for the endothelium that you'll have to digest. You'll have to be extremely careful. And the continuous injection, even when I'm doing with cystitome, I'm continuously injecting with viscoelastic. That is a savior. So with that,
so all the manuals are done on the iris. I think there is a chances of touching the iris. And is there any issue of intraoperative meiosis during this procedure?
Yeah, there will be some amount of it depends upon how much of iris you touch. If you're continuously forming the chamber with viscoelastic, iris is being touched behind, there will be some amount of meiosis, but again, that's avoidable. 8 millimeter eye pupil can come down to 6 millimeters or 1 millimeter. It depends upon the maneuvers that you do. It's not just this much. Even when you're doing IA, if you're touching iris, when you're doing rhexis, before anything can give rise to meiosis. It may not be specific to nuclear management, but what you said is absolutely right. There could be a meiosis when you're doing a large nucleus management.
Sir, there is one question here actually. The orientation of your vectis and your Sinski hook or the bisector, should they be parallel to each other or should they crisscross when you try to bisect the nucleus?
See, I have only 5 or 6 millimeter tunnel. I don't have a sine port. I don't make a side port. I never made a side port. It's that, and then the left hand is in that direction, right hand is in that direction. There is about maybe 15-20 degrees angle between my bisector and the thing. It's not a huge one, but it's enough. But only thing is you'll have to balance it, watch the tilting of nucleus throughout, and then take it. Soft nucleus up to 3-4, there's no problem. Only 5 and above, you will have to be really careful because the bulk of the nucleus and the hardness of the nucleus. They're slightly angulated.
Sir, what which area will you start your hydrodissection, sir, actually? You made a scleral tunnel. Where exactly you begin the hydrodissection?
Okay. See,
I saw you doing it perpendicular to the section, or will you do it straight opposite the section?
Okay, now I'm sitting. I can share it actually. Can I share?
Yes, sir. Why I'm asking you this question is most of the time we find difficulty in aspirating the subincisional cortex. If you begin the hydrodissection exactly opposite to the place where you place the scleral tunnel incision, the hydrodissection will dissect the cortical matter in the subincisional areas also. I think that is a easier method of handling this subincisional cortex.
Yeah, this is the classical picture. I'm sitting temporally. That's the right eye, and where I'm sitting. These are the lashes. I think I'm sitting temporally on the eye, and that's the rhexis. This is my temporal tunnel. I'm going there. This is angulated at 45 degrees, 2 millimeters from the tip it's bent. And then I'm going in that direction. So that comes to me, forget about which eye is it. If this is 12 o'clock, that is 6 o'clock, that's 9 o'clock. It's always at 10 o'clock. I start from there. And as I said, this hydrodissection cannula, the tip of it goes somewhere there ultimately, as I'll show you. And it is not in that plane. It's not in that plane. I rotate this axially. I rotate it axially. If you can show it on the video, I rotate it axially like that. So the tip, instead of that, comes down. This tip goes towards the this thing, and as you can see here, go down, and immediately you'll get a hydrodissection. Here it's little difficult. I don't know why, but then if it's not happening in 1 second, it happens. The amount of fluid that you inject is not more than 0.1, 0.2.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in mLs. So just about 0.1 ml, you can get a very good, consistently good hydrodissection if you do this. Go there, widen it. So now I'm going, tip is somewhere there. Separate the capsule, and I'm very careful. I've just stopped it there. So the fluid that you need is a very small amount in hydrodissection. You should have the right plane between the capsule and the cortex. Again, I'll repeat, in spite of having told so many times, it is not for nuclear management. You can beautifully manage the entire nucleus without hydrodissection. Hydrodissection is only to separate capsule and cortex, and it will only facilitate cortical aspiration. And if you do that, you will have nucleus and epinucleus taken out together as one piece, and you will have very quick surgery. I have measured the amount of fluid that you use per surgery today. It's not more than 20 to 30 ml. Actually, that goes inside there is even less than 20 ml. The entire fluid that you need for the surgery is less than 20 ml. That includes hydrodissection, that includes aspiration, and that includes cortical removal and wash and visco removal at the end of the surgery. Not more than 20 ml. You don't need that. Hydrodissection is more maximum 0.2 or 0.3 ml. And the hydrodissection, Dr. Nagaraju, what you asked is absolutely right. There should no increase in the pressure in the anterior chamber. Any drop of fluid injected into the eye should be compensated by a drop of fluid coming out of the eye. Otherwise, there will be enormous amounts. See, we all inject Avastin and Lucentis and all of that. 0.05 ml is the amount we inject into the eye, vitreous cavity, a closed eye, 0.05, less than 0.1 ml, half of 0.1 ml. And that can increase the pressure from 15 to 45. Somebody has done a study of how much pressure can go up after injection of fluid. It can go up to 45 millimeters of mercury. It can go anywhere from 20 to 45. So that's the effect of it. So if you blindly inject this fluid into that, and if it increases the pressure, you'll have the posterior capsular tear if you're not allowing it to come out.
Sir, is there any role for making radial incision in the capsule when you find the nucleus is very large? And if at all, what is the type of incision? How many number of incisions? What clock covers you put the incisions? And whether it should be radial or tangential? These are few tips.
I introduced a tangential technique long time ago. Don't go radial, go tangentially.
Yes, sir.
But then I would prefer to rather doing a radial incision. See, if you're not done a hydrodissection, you have to do it before hydrodissection.
Yeah.
If you assess the size of the rexis has become smaller, see, there is a very easy way. See, you have calipers all the time on the eye. See, what happens is sometimes you operate in a small magnification, sometimes you operate in a large magnification. Your assessment of, and pupil is larger and smaller. So your assessment of rexis depends upon so many things, your microscope magnification to size of the pupil. In a smaller pupil, you tend to do a smaller rexis. In an elderly age, you can do a very large rexis. In an younger person, large rexis is very difficult because there will be zonular fibers coming out of the anterior chamber. So you tend to make it smaller. You tend to end up in smaller rexis. Best is before doing a rexis, if you have a 6 millimeter or 7 millimeter marker, just impress it on the cornea so that you'll have a guide. The old refine is enough, or the old tube is enough, or you have a marker on. I have devised a 6 millimeter marker. Just put it on. Don't make a marker. Just get an approximate measurement of how much is 6 millimeter. Then that will give a rough idea as to where you should run. Or if you know your pupil is 7 millimeter, you can just run it just inside the pupil. So you should have a mental mark as to what is the size of rexis. If your rexis is smaller, if you assess the nucleus is larger than that, that's the time to act. You make a small cut in one of these tangentially with Vanas and make it a rexis, a larger rexis. As Dr. Kiran Singh from Ranjit Singh Son says, old rexis, he describes it as a beautiful way. If you can't make a large rexis, at least make a large oval rexis so it will reduce it. So you don't have to, nicking a capsule is a bad idea. You should not do it. And if I'm ending up doing that, because once you do a hydrodissection, once you prolapse the nucleus and doing this second rexis is very difficult. You can't see because you've disturbed all the cortex. So it's done before actually do hydrodissection. The second, that's the time you should plan to enlarge your rexis. Don't postpone it. And if you're making it, I do a tangential, and it's one cut. I do see people say balance it with the second cut and the third cut and the fourth cut. It's like having so many devils. So I would like to have a single devil. I know it's a devil. I've made it there. Then that side, I manage nucleus, that side cortex, I have never removed till the end. I'll remove all the cortex, leave the cortex there. Because cortex holds the capsule there. It prevents it from migrating to the posterior cortex. That will be the fag end I'll remove that cortex and then put the lens. So sometimes it does extend to the periphery, it does extend to this thing, but I would like to enlarge it formally rather than trying to end up in a situation where I have to give a relaxing cut.
Thank you, sir.
We come to the end of the session. I think we are short by 20 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Very
that was a
useful
very good
discussion. Very useful.
Yeah, very useful discussion. Couldn't check the time also. Okay. So I would like to end the session. If there is any other questions left.
You will be asked in the main forum. WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Which is the main forum that we are using. I think we have to use one forum for discussions.
We are supposed to use Telegram, but nobody's posting on Telegram. We are supposed to use Telegram, but we should make it more popular and let us all try to be focused on that one platform, so that will be better.
I think the Telegram word is looking old-fashioned.
So one question, if I may ask now, like in posterior polar cataract, is it that we should not rotate the nucleus after hydrodissection so that there is we don't lose we don't.
No, I'll completely disagree with this. Is a standard statement told on all dialysis, but I'll completely disagree with it. See, most of the tears in the posterior, in the subcapsular cataract, I do not want you to try it out, because then you at least watch a couple of videos. I'll tell you the reason why it is so. There are a lot of things that are told on the stage which is not correct, which is not scientific. So the problem that occurs in these cataracts is, while you watch any number of surgeries, the problem is always when you're aspirating the cortex at the end. That's the time when they tear. The second is when you're doing hydrodissection. The third is nuclear management, and when you're pressurizing the eye, like there is so much of fluid running into eye, and posterior capsule is ballooned backwards. That's the time it tears. You watch all the videos on that. All the reason is you're maximizing the depth of anterior chamber and the capsular depth. You don't do it. SICs is probably the best technique to manage posterior capsular and subcapsular cataract. Even if you have a tear in the capsule, you can easily put a PC lens or sulcus lens. I'll tell you the reason why it is so. If you have separated the cortex from the capsule, there is no force. Imagine there is an intrinsically weak posterior capsule. So fluid is very gentle. It's just going to run and find out the least resistance, flow of it. It flows along the way of least resistance. Okay, it flows like that. And then when you separated cortex from the capsule, the cortical aspiration becomes so easy. I'll show you when we touch on the cortex.
Sir, we are going to have a special session on posterior polar cataracts. So
fine, I'll explain it. So the only way out is you have to rotate the nucleus so that the pull on the posterior capsule is least. I would go with rotation of nucleus compulsorily in all these patients. Make it
Okay,
short.
so you said it will go to the least resistance. So will it hydrate the vitreous if there is a?
No, we'll talk some of the time. I think now
Sure,
we're
sure,
at the end.
sure. I think it will.
We'll-
Okay, thank you so much.
We'll keep that in mind. There's no question of hydration. That's the simplest and easiest and novelist way of doing posterior. I can show you 3 dozen cases of posterior subcapsular cataract, all done in the same technique, no problems.
Okay, okay.
I have a video of where there is an evident preoperative tear in the posterior capsule. There is an electrical opening, which is classically described. I did a hydrodissection in that patient. Ultimately, it proved that there is no posterior rent. It's an intact capsule.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I would like to congratulate all the presenters for their excellent presentation and lot of take-home points at every talk. So I would like to end this session and we will meet for next week, next Thursday, same time for our 7th episode. Thanks a lot. Good night.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Excellent.
Thank you. Bye.
The topics for next week.
Yeah, can you please start contributing? Let me know what you all thinking. I'll plan out by tomorrow evening. It will be ready.
Okay.
Just let me know.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay, let us continue with the nucleus bisection. That was my thought. Please let me know. Dr. Sundaram Shetty sir does bisection in a different way slightly, so we can have his thoughts and some other one case presentation.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Please
Bye.
back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.